Welcome back to the channel, my food warriors. Today we are making a French classic known as Vichyssoise. It's basically a very rustic soup, predominantly made with leeks and potatoes, very high in vegetable content, lots of vitamins, lots of minerals, very earthy, ton of fiber, and we're actually going to up the protein on this one by putting some shredded chicken breast in there as well at the end. The chicken breast is not traditional, but you know what? With a growing family, we want to make sure that we have lots of protein in the diet for all of the athletes in the family so that they can get proper nutrition to fuel their bodies, and this is something for my players out there as well. So we're going to get started. For anyone who hasn't seen one of these puppies before, this is a Leek. This is a member of the onion family. There's nothing that tastes quite like a Leek. It's got a very, very unique flavor, somewhere between onions, little garlicky, but it's sweet, it's mild. There's just nothing quite like a Leek within the onion family. And in this classic French recipe, this is a classic French farmhouse dish. Some people like this warm, some people like it lukewarm, some even like it cold. Personally, I like it warm. But this is a Leek, and what you need to know about these things is they tend to grow in sandy soil. So what we want to do is you want to make sure that we can clean this well so we don't get any of that sand, any of that grit in our dish. So with these leeks, this is not a particularly big leek. Some of them get really, really long. So what I'm going to do is some of these outer leaves get a little bit tough, a little bit leathery. I'm just going to pull these guys off. They come apart in layers. But even this green stuff up here on top, this green section, if we're making a soup and we're going to cook this in a very moist medium, there's no reason why we can't use this. Perfectly edible, adds a ton of flavor and a ton of fiber to this recipe. So we've got some dry edges here on the end of this green section. We're just going to cut these off. This we're not going to use. We'll just put this off to the side. And then this root end here, this one's not too bad. Sometimes it's actually got the roots sticking out, and we're just going to discard that. So this is basically our leek, and we're going to cut this up by giving it one slice right down the middle, and you'll see this is all starting to open up. That's exactly what we want, because we want to get some water in there and we want to flush out all of that sandy soil that it was grown in. So we're just going to cut this into, let's call it 1/4 inch slices, and let me just show you what I mean by some of that sandy soil. So you see these pieces here have a little bit of that brown grit. That's that sandy soil that it was grown in. So we want to make sure that we take all of that out so that it's not giving our soup a grainy finish. That would not be a good thing. So let's make sure we just cut this up. I have another 5 leeks that I've already cut up in the same manner in this big bowl. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of this and put it right into the bowl. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this under cold water, essentially fill this bowl. I'm going to agitate the leeks and make sure I get all that sandy soil off our leeks. So we're just going to let this water run. Just going to clean this up a little bit, and we'll get started on some of our other items here. So predominantly this is a soup that consists of leek and potatoes, but there's a couple of other ingredients that we're going to use to add some flavor in here as well. I've got 4 cloves of garlic that I'm going to cut up. I've got 4 medium-sized potatoes that I'm going to use to thicken my soup, and same method as we always do on the kind of large side of a box grater. I've got 1 chili pepper because Coach Joe always likes it spicy. And then I've got 8 cups of chicken stock here that are heating up so that I can pour some warm stock in and get our soup going. Now I don't know if 8 cups is going to be quite enough because we are making a double batch, so I do have another 4 cups on standby, and if I need to add more, I'll make that determination as soon as we're ready to go. So we're just going to get back to our leeks here, give them a little flush through in the water. There we are. We're just going to let this bowl fill with a little more water. What's going to happen here is the leeks will float to the top. All of that sandy grit will settle on the bottom, and then when we look to drain these, we're not going to pour these out into a colander, because what's going to happen, water will come out and the grit will fall back on top of the leeks. That's not what we want. So we're actually going to go in there with a sieve or a small colander, and we're going to pull those leeks out. That way all the grit stays on the bottom, doesn't interfere with the dish. So we will just give this one more flush through. And there we are. That's it. And we will ship the water. As always, hands are impeccably clean. They've already been washed. And now we're going to get a couple of these other items ready to go as we heat up our pan. So let's get the heat going under our pan here. Let's get our 4 cloves of garlic. These are not particularly large cloves of garlic, so if yours are a little bigger, you may want to go with a little bit less. If they're smaller, by all means, feel free to go with a little more. In your kitchen, you are the boss. If you like a little more garlic or a little more chili, by all means, do as you like. There we are. Let's just get this garlic out of the paper. All right. And we will just get this off to the side. And we will take our chili pepper here. I've washed this chili pepper well. I'm just going to take off the stem end, and we're going to get these aromatics going. Just give our garlics a quick squash. That way they're not rolling around the board. And then we can give them just a quick mince here. And we're going to keep those fingers out of the way and use the end of our knuckle to guide our knife so that everything that we have here is beautifully uniform, beautifully even. Now with this soup, this is a blended soup. It's going to be a smooth soup at the end. So what we're going to do is we're going to run an immersion blender through this soup. You can use a food processor if you don't have one. You can use a regular blender. We'll get to that right towards the final stages. But this is going to be a very, very thick, very creamy soup, very hearty soup. Great for cold winter's day. Nice, cold fall evening after training, coming home from the field. You get yourself a nice bowl of this. Piece of crusty bread. Doesn't get better than that. So we will just give our chili just a fine slice. And once we've gotten that on our fingers, we want to make sure wash those hands before you touch your face or anything close to it. So you know what? I will just do that quickly. There we are. All right. So we're just going to get some oil in our pan. There we are. And we're going to start off with our aromatics. There we are. Get a spatula. Go. And we will give this a quick stir. Now all we want to do is just soften our vegetables. We don't want to get any color on them. We just want everything to sweat down. So I'm going to give this another 30 seconds or so, and I'll be right back. All right, now we are back. We've given our garlic and our chilies a few seconds to soften. This is the first batch of leeks that I've scooped out of our water bath. I'm just going to add these in, and we're going to soften those leeks up as well. So just get this first batch into the pan. If we have a little bit of water at the bottom of the bowl, that's not a problem. That's actually going to help the leeks soften as they get into the pan. You don't want to put too much. There we are. But this is our first batch of leeks. We'll just raise we are. Temperature on our burner here, and we'll give those a couple of seconds. What I have here is a simple sieve, and all I'm doing is I'm scooping the leeks that are floating at the top of the bowl, and we're just going to get these. There we are. There. And that is all of them. So we will take these, get them right into the pot. I know this looks like a lot, but this is going to cook down. So these are beautifully clean. I don't see any sand, any grit at all. Perfect. So put this bowl off to the side, get every last bit. And now give my hands a quick dry, and we're going to start to season this up. So we're going to go with a little bit of salt. There we are. And a little bit of black pepper. There we are. Move this guy off to the side. And a quick rinse. And we're going to give this a nice stir. And we want to make sure we move these around. We're going to cover these leeks so that they have an opportunity to sweat. That salt is going to pull all the liquid out of the leeks, which is going to be used to flavor our soup. But ultimately that steam inside this pot is going to cause these leeks to cook down. So in our pot we've got our garlic, our chilies, and our leeks. We're just going to allow this to cook down for a good 10 minutes or so, covered, and I will see you in about 10 minutes. All right, we are back. Just going to take a quick peek at our leeks here. Oh, coming along very nicely. So if you remember where we left off, these leeks were right about up to the top of the pan. And now, as I look at our big stock pot here, these leeks are coming up maybe to about a third of our pot. So that's just about what we want. Our leeks have sweated down beautifully. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start to grate our potatoes here. These potatoes have been well washed, well scrubbed, and what we're going to do is we're going to take our box grater, large side of our box grater, and we're just going to grate these potatoes so that when they cook into the soup, they will cook in quickly. And what we want to do is create as much area as possible, as much surface area on each of these strands so that it releases all of the starch into the soup. And this is what's going to thicken the soup without really very much cream at all. Now, are we going to add a little bit of cream? Yeah, a little bit towards the end, just to give it that velvety mouthfeel. But we're going to add very, very little. It's more a choice at this point. Absolutely not a necessity, just an option at this point. Completely up to you. Most important thing with these potatoes, we want the pieces to be relatively uniform and relatively small so that they cook quickly and that we can get them into the soup very, very quickly. So right towards the end, you notice I'm opening up my hand here so that I'm not busting up any fingers or any knuckles as I get these potatoes grated up. These are just a regular yellow flesh potato. Typical Yukon Gold variety that you find in most supermarkets. Nothing fancy about these potatoes at all. Any yellow or white flesh potato would work just fine. And this is, 3 or 4 medium-sized potatoes I think would be enough to thicken this pot of soup. And I haven't peeled these at all. I've kept the skin on. There's a lot of vitamins in the skin, a lot of fiber, and I want to keep all of that good stuff, all of that nutrition in my dish. So I'll just keep a couple of these pieces here. I'll cut these up with a knife at the end. And we'll get our last potato going here. Like I said, very, very earthy dish, very rustic dish. This is typical French home cooking at its finest. And here we are. So I'll put this guy with the others. Get this stuff off my fingers. And there is our pile of shredded potato. So what we're going to do is get all this stuff, there we are, off of our grater. Put that in there. All right, let's open up our pot. There we are. And we'll get all of the potato right in there. There we are. Now, for these guys here, we're not going to waste these. We'll just give these guys a quick chop. Turn them over. Quick chop the other way. There we are. And we will add this right into our pot. There we are. Give our hands a quick wash. There we are. And we will give this a good stir. There we are. So now, next step is to add in our broth and maybe a little bit of white wine. There we are. This is looking very, very nice. The smell, oh, just absolutely phenomenal. All right, so let's get a little bit of dry white wine out of the fridge. We don't need too much, maybe I'd say a good cup or so of white wine. There we are. And we'll let that come back up to temperature. What we want to do is let that alcohol cook off before we add our stock. And that wine is just going to give us a little bit of acidity, a little bit of fruitiness, and it's just going to add to the complexity of this dish. Now, I've made this a few different ways in the past. You know, sometimes if I have a little bit of extra bacon kicking around, and Coach Joe does usually have a little bit of extra bacon kicking around, I'll crisp up a little bit of bacon, and then I'll use the fat from the bacon to saute and sweat down my vegetables, pull the bacon out, and then add the bacon at the end as a bit of a garnish, just to give it a little bit of crunch, a little bit of smokiness. This time I'm going to be using some chicken breasts that I've just cooked off. Literally 3 chicken breasts in a frying pan, a little bit of salt, pepper, and olive oil. Just seared them off beautifully, and then I'm just going to shred that chicken right at the end and put it into the dish just to bring up a little bit of that protein factor. So our wine is going well. What we have here is our chicken stock. So what I've done here, this is chicken stock with no salt added. So it's a good quality chicken stock that I bought. There's no salt in this because I want to be the one to control the amount of salt that I ultimately have in my dish. I don't think 8 cups is going to be enough, so I have another 4 cups here standing by. All I'm going to do is I'm going to pour this warm stock right into the pot. And yeah, I think I am going to need that extra 4 cups as well. So I'm going to add that in here as well. There we are. Now we're going to give this a stir. Give this a quick stir. Now we're going to let this just come up to the boil, and then we're going to reduce the heat and just let it simmer for about 10 or 12 minutes or so. And that's going to soften, especially the greens of the leeks that are a little bit more fibrous than the whites. So we just want a little bit of time in this broth to simmer and for those leeks to soften. When everything is cooked through, we're going to run it through the immersion blender, and there's our soup. So I will see you in about 15 minutes. And we are back. Our soup has been simmering for a good 12 to 14 minutes. I just fished out one of the green portions of the leek, gave that a quick taste. As soon as that's tender, you know we're ready to go, because that's the part of the leek that requires the most cooking. If that's tender, then we know absolutely everything else is ready to go. I have here an immersion blender. This is basically a stick blender that I'm going to put inside the pot to start to just puree the soup together. You can use a full-size blender, you can use a food processor, you can serve it exactly as is, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But what we're looking for is something a little bit more, a little bit more refined. We're going to puree this so that you get a really velvety mouthfeel, and we're going to add a little bit of cream to this in a sec. So what I want to do is I want to turn my immersion blender on high. This is almost like a little bolt motor, and we're going to put this right into the pot, and I'm going to puree everything up while it's cooking. So as I move this around, those blades at the bottom are going to suck everything in, and they're basically going to chop everything up. And this is just a really rustic farmhouse recipe from France. I mean, look at the colors, very vibrant. That potato that we grated in, that's going to thicken our soup. We've got lots of great colors in here. We've got the red shreds from our chili pepper. We've got some beautiful greens and yellows as well. And we're just going to puree this up. Again, very rustic. We're not looking for this to be perfectly smooth, but we do want this to have a nice, velvety, smooth mouthfeel. And keep in mind, this is about 6 liters of soup. This will feed easily 12 people, if not more. Easily 12 portions in this pot. So we are just gonna give this another 30 seconds or so, and then we're gonna add our cream. We're gonna test for seasoning, and then we're gonna add our chicken. These immersion blenders, one of my absolute favorite kitchen tools. Save you from having to get your big blender all dirty and hose that down when you're done. This is just really quick. And you can puree this as much as you want. If you want it slightly chunkier, don't puree it as long. If you want it smoother, give it a few more seconds. It's literally simple as that. There we are. And we are just about there. So we'll just give this one final blitz to get those items that we got out of the blades. Oh, just a beautiful color. There we are. So I'm just going to pop this guy off. There we are. Put that in our bowl. We're going to get our cream. This step is completely optional, and literally all I'm going to put in here is about a cup of cream. So for 6 liters of soup, a cup or so of cream, just to give it a slightly richer mouthfeel. There we are. Oh, spectacular. So we're going to taste this for seasoning before we add our chicken. There we are. So this is still on the heat. This is going to continue to go. Oh, just absolutely beautiful. So, got our spoon here. We definitely need salt. It's our stock. None of the stock that we put in was salted at all. So we want to give this a good bit of salt. And then we want to give this a nice pinch of pepper. And we will stir all of that in. We'll give this one more taste. And then we will get our chicken cut up. There we are. More salt. There we are. All right, I think that should do it. Nice big pot of soup. Definitely feed a crowd. There we 3 chicken breasts here that I just sauteed up quickly before I even got started with my soup. And all this is 3 breasts of chicken, a little salt, a little pepper, and that's it. And what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to slice this up, just run my knife through it, just to add some extra protein to this soup. Perfectly fine as is, but with growing athletes in the house, I want to make sure we've got a little bit of extra protein in there for those recovering muscles after training. There we are. There we are. And I'll just give this a quick chop. And we'll get our third one here. Oh, smell. I wish you could smell all this. Absolutely phenomenal. There we are. And what we're going to do is we're going to add this right to our soup just to heat through. Give that a quick stir, and then we can plate that up. Like I said, chicken completely optional, but depending on the dietary needs of your family, feel free to modify any of these recipes according to your own dietary needs, and in some cases, restrictions. There we are. Let's give this one final stir, and then we will plate this up. Oh, what a smell. There we are. All right. I'll just get a ladle. There we are. And our bowl. And we will plate this up to try. There we are. Keep that here. We'll shut our burner off. And let's give our final product a taste. Phenomenal. So healthy, so simple, so easy. I wish you give this one a try. If you find any value in these videos at all, by all means, feel free to like and subscribe. We will see you on the next one.